conference room at Patterson and Associates smelled like leather and old money. My parents sat across the mahogany table, my sister Vanessa beside them. I sat at the end, hands folded, saying nothing. "Let's begin the estate planning," Dad announced, spreading papers across the table. "Your mother and I want everything settled properly." I was 31. Vanessa was 28. The meeting invitation had read family estate planning mandatory attendance. "The lake house goes to Vanessa," Dad continued. "She's always loved it there, and with her marketing career she'll need a place for client retreats." Vanessa's marketing career was managing social media for a local yoga studio. She made $35,000 a year and asked our parents for money monthly. "The investment portfolio split 70-30, Mom added. 70% to Vanessa, 30 to you, Lily. You're doing fine on your own. Vanessa needs support to reach her potential." I'd been doing fine since I was 23. I graduated early with degrees in computer science and business, started a software company at 25, sold it at 29 for $42 million, and now ran a venture capital firm. My parents thought I was a mid-level programmer making $60,000 a year. "The Cape Cod beach house, 3 generations in our family, goes to Vanessa," Dad said. "She understands its sentimental value." Vanessa had visited twice in 10 years. "The commercial building downtown with the retail spaces," Mom continued, "also goes to Vanessa. She might start her own business someday." "What about Lily?" Vanessa asked, not looking up from her phone. "Is she getting anything, or are you finally admitting she's the disappointment?" Mom's smile strained. "Lily is capable and independent. She doesn't need family support like you do, sweetie. Resources go where they're most needed." I understood. I'd understood for 31 years that Vanessa was special, the one worth investing in, while my achievements were dismissed as luck. I also understood something they didn't. "One more property," Dad said, pulling another document. "The Aspen cabin. Purchased 15 years ago, currently worth $2 million. We're thinking." "Let me guess," I interrupted quietly. "Vanessa gets that too?" "She enjoys skiing," Dad said. "It's a wonderful asset for her future." Vanessa had been skiing once and complained about the cold constantly. "Is there something you'd like to say, Lily?" Mom asked, her tone suggesting I should be grateful to be included at all. I pulled out my phone and sent a text. "Yes. But first, I'm curious. Do any of you know who actually owns these properties you're dividing up?" Dad frowned. "We do. Your mother and I purchased all of them over the years for our family. For Vanessa's future, primarily." "All of them?" I asked. "Yes. We've worked hard to build this portfolio. For Vanessa." "I think," I said calmly, "we should wait for my attorney before continuing." The room went silent. "Hold up. Your attorney?" Dad's expression shifted from annoyance to confusion. "This is a family meeting, Lily. We don't need lawyers complicating simple estate planning. I think you'll want to hear what mine has to say." The door opened. Catherine Morrison entered, 55, impeccably dressed, partner at Morrison & Chin specializing in trust and estate law. She'd structured my entire financial portfolio. "Ms. Morrison," I greeted her. "Thank you for coming." "Of course, Ms. Chin." She set her briefcase down and nodded professionally at my family. "I understand we're discussing property distribution?" "This is private family business," Mom said, voice tight. "I don't see why Lily needs outside counsel for a simple estate meeting." "Because your daughter asked me to clarify certain ownership details causing confusion." Catherine pulled out a thick stack of documents, each marked with official seals. "Hey, She began laying documents across the table. "Let's start with the lake house at 847 Lakeview Drive," Catherine said. "You stated this goes to Vanessa?" "Yes," Dad said firmly. "We purchased it 12 years ago. Actually, this property was purchased 8 years ago by Summit Ridge Properties LLC." Catherine slid a deed forward. "The LLC is wholly owned by the Chin Family Trust, controlled by a single trustee, Lily Chin." Dead silence. "That's impossible," Mom said. "I remember writing the check for that house. You may have provided initial funds, but the property title has been in Ms. Chen's LLC for 8 years. She refinanced it, renovated it, pays all taxes and maintenance. Current value, $1.8 million. Vanessa's face went pale. Why would Lily own our lake house? Let's continue. Catherine pulled another document. The Cape Cod property at 234 Beach Haven Lane. You said 3 generations. My grandfather built that house, Dad said, but his confidence was cracking. Your grandfather built the original structure. However, it went to foreclosure 23 years ago for unpaid taxes. It was auctioned and sold 6 years ago to Coastal Holdings LLC. She slid the deed across. Owned by Ms. Chen's trust. Current value, $2.1 million. Mom's hand went to her throat. Lily, what is this? Catherine ignored the question. The commercial building downtown. Retail spaces and apartments. You said this goes to Vanessa? We've owned it for years, Dad insisted. It was purchased 4 years ago by Urban Development Associates LLC, owned by Ms. Chen's trust. Current value, $5.3 million. Generates approximately $40,000 monthly in rental income. Stop, Dad said. This is ridiculous. We own these properties. You've been paying some utilities and maintenance, Catherine interrupted. But Ms. Chen has covered mortgages, property taxes, major repairs and legal fees. In some cases she purchased properties you'd lost to foreclosure and let you continue using them. Why would she do that? Vanessa's voice went shrill. Because, I said quietly, every time I tried to tell you about my actual career, my actual success, you dismissed it. You changed the subject. You made it clear you weren't interested unless I was giving you money. That's not true, Mom protested. When I told you I started my company, you said it was a cute side project. When I mentioned Fortune 500 consulting, you asked if it paid enough to be worth my time. When I sold my company, I tried to tell you at Christmas, and you interrupted to discuss Vanessa's apartment for 20 minutes. Catherine pulled out another document. The Aspen Cabin. Purchased 3 years ago by Mountain Peak Holdings LLC, Ms. Chen's trust. Current value, $2.4 million. How? Dad's face had turned gray. How do you have this kind of money? I sold my software company for $42 million, I said calmly. I started a venture capital firm. My current net worth is approximately $93 million. I own 7 properties across 4 states, have equity in 23 startups, and generate about $4 million annually in passive income. The silence was absolute. $93 million? Vanessa whispered. Catherine continued. The investment portfolio you're splitting? Ms. Chen has been the primary contributor for 6 years. Her contributions account for 85% of current value. That's our retirement fund, Mom said faintly. It's Ms. Chen's fund that she allowed you access to. She's contributed $15,000 monthly for 6 years. You've contributed roughly $2,000 annually. A knock interrupted. Another man entered with a briefcase. This is Robert Chen, Catherine said. Ms. Chen's financial advisor. Robert, please explain the new property access situation. Robert pulled out documents. Effective immediately, all property access codes are changed. Ms. Chen has revoked family use of the lake house, Cape Cod property in Aspen Cabin. Future access requires written permission and signed rental agreements at market rates. You're locking us out? Vanessa stood. Those are family properties. Those are Ms. Chen's properties, Robert corrected. Which she generously allowed you to use free of charge. That arrangement is terminated. Revelation. Dad stood abruptly, chair scraping back. This is legal manipulation. We raised you, Lily. We gave you everything. You charged me rent from age 16, I said levelly. You borrowed $35,000 for Vanessa's college and never repaid it. You forgot my graduation, my birthday 3 years running, every major milestone. You gave me nothing. We loved you, Mom said, tears forming. We supported you. You tolerated me while investing everything in Vanessa. Every conversation for 10 years has been about what Vanessa needs, wants, deserves. I was an afterthought at best, a disappointment at worst. Catherine pulled out another document. This details ownership of all properties in Ms. Chen's portfolio, including the 4 you attempted to distribute today. She is sole beneficiary with complete control. Why? Vanessa looked between anger and confusion. Why buy all this and let us think we owned it? Because I wanted to see if you'd ever actually see me. Not as the boring daughter, not as the backup plan, not as an ATM. Just as me. We see you, Dad insisted. You don't. You're literally sitting here dividing up my property without realizing it's mine. You know so little about my life that you didn't know I bought the lake house you vacation at. You didn't know I saved the Cape Cod house from foreclosure after you abandoned it. You knew nothing because you never asked. Robert pulled out spreadsheets. Over 8 years, Miss Chin has provided $375,000 to her family. Property maintenance, emergency loans, car payments, medical bills. None repaid. 300,000? Mom's voice was barely audible. We didn't know, Dad said. If we'd known you had this money, you would have asked for more, I finished. Exactly why I didn't tell you. Catherine handed documents to each of them. This is formal notification that Miss Chin will no longer provide financial support. All outstanding loans, $375,000, are forgiven, but no new assistance will be forthcoming. This cease and desist prohibits using Miss Chen's name, financial status, or success in any business dealings or social representations. Why would we do that? Dad asked. Because you've been telling people I'm funding Vanessa's lifestyle. That my money is family money. That you raised a successful daughter. Singular. You've been taking credit for my success while dismissing it to my face. We didn't mean. Mom started crying. Intent doesn't matter. Impact does. 31 years of being invisible in my own family means I'm done trying to be seen. Catherine pulled out final papers. The investment portfolio will be restructured to reflect actual ownership. Ms. Chin owns 85%, approximately $312,000. Your parents own 12%, $44,000. Vanessa owns 3%, $11,000. $11,000? Vanessa's voice cracked. That's all I get? That's what you contributed, Robert said. $8,000 over 6 years. Your parents contributed $43,000. Ms. Chin contributed $325,000. I want my money out now, Vanessa demanded. We can process that withdrawal, Robert said. $11,000 will be transferred within 3 business days. The reality was sinking in. Not just about the properties or money, but about everything they'd assumed about me, their family hierarchy, who was successful and who needed help. One more thing, Catherine said, looking at me. Are you certain? I nodded. She placed papers before my parents. This formally terminates Ms. Chen's financial support. Additionally, all property keys must be returned within 48 hours. Failure to comply will result in trespassing charges. Ms. Chin is also changing property management companies, and your names are being removed from all emergency contact lists and authorized user agreements. We need those properties, Mom said desperately. We were planning to use the lake house next month for our anniversary. You'll need to book it through the rental company, Robert said. Peak season rate is $4,000 per week. $4,000. Dad's face went red. That's insane. That's market rate, Catherine said coolly. Which is what Ms. Chin charges all guests. You're no longer receiving preferential treatment. Resolution. Lily, wait. Dad's voice stopped me as I stood to leave. We can fix this. We made mistakes, but we're family. Family forgives. Family respects, I countered. Family sees. Family values. You did none of those things. We need time to process, Mom pleaded. This is overwhelming. Maybe we can meet next week. There's nothing to discuss. The properties are mine. The money is mine. My life is mine. You're welcome to have a relationship with me, but it won't include access to my assets or assumptions about my resources. What are we supposed to do? Vanessa's mascara ran down her face. I can't afford my apartment without help. I was counting on inheriting my property? I asked. Maybe this is an opportunity to figure out what you actually want instead of waiting for handouts. That's cruel, Mom whispered. No. Cruel is raising one daughter to believe she's extraordinary while raising the other to believe she's ordinary. Cruel is dividing someone's property without checking if it's yours to give. Cruel is 31 years of invisibility. I walked out. Catherine and Robert followed me to the elevator. That was harder than expected, I admitted once we reached the parking garage. It usually is, Catherine said gently. But you were clear and firm. No room for manipulation. Will they challenge this legally? They have no grounds, Robert assured me. Every document is airtight. You own everything free and clear. They left and I sat in my Tesla for a long moment. My phone was already buzzing. Mom, Dad, Vanessa, even extended family. All variations of shock, anger, confusion. I turned it off. Within 48 hours the consequences began. The lake house security system logged multiple failed entry attempts with old codes. The Cape Cod property manager reported my parents trying to book their usual week and being quoted $15,000. Vanessa's texts became desperate. She'd been evicted. Could she borrow money? Stay at a property? Please just talk? I didn't respond. 1 week later Catherine called. Your parents hired an attorney to contest the property ownership. Their lawyer reviewed the documentation and withdrew from the case. He told them no legitimate attorney would touch it. The ownership is ironclad. Good. There's more. Vanessa filed for unemployment benefits. Your parents are apparently 3 months behind on their mortgage. Without access to the investment portfolio income, they're facing foreclosure themselves. I felt a twinge of something, not quite guilt. More like sadness for the family we could have been. That's not my problem, I said. 2 weeks after the meeting, my Aunt Carol ambushed me at a coffee shop. Lily, your mother is devastated. Your father can barely function. This is too far. Did they tell you they tried to give away my properties? I asked calmly. Her face faltered. Did they mention the $375,000 I've given them? Or that I funded 85% of the portfolio? They were splitting 70-30 in Vanessa's favor. Silence. They assumed I was nobody, so they treated me like nobody. That's not a misunderstanding, Aunt Carol. That's a choice they made for 3 decades. She left without another word. 3 months later, I heard through legal channels that my parents had downsized to a small rental apartment. Vanessa moved back home with them. According to mutual acquaintances, she was working retail and posting bitter Instagram stories about family betrayal. Their retirement plans had evaporated. The properties they'd assumed were theirs gone. The portfolio they'd been counting on, restructured to reflect reality. The daughter they'd dismissed, unreachable. 6 months after the meeting, a certified letter arrived. My father's handwriting. We were wrong. About everything. We see that now. We don't expect forgiveness, but we want you to know we finally understand. You deserved better. You deserved to be seen. We're sorry we didn't see you until it was too late. I read it 3 times. Sounded genuine. But it changed nothing. I wrote back, thank you for the apology. I appreciate the acknowledgement. But this isn't about punishment. It's about protection. For 31 years I built a life you never bothered to learn about. I'm going to keep building it without you in it. I hope you find peace. I mailed the letter and felt lighter. My properties stayed mine. My boundaries stayed firm. My life continued, successful, intentional, mine. The family estate they'd so confidently divided? It remained exactly where it had always been. In my name. Under my control. Built by my work. They'd spent decades building their golden child while ignoring their actual success story. By the time they realized their mistake, the estate had already been planned. Just not by them.